everyone. Today we're going to go over planting, growing, and harvesting lettuce. I have a variety of different lettuces to show you today: spinach, romaine, arugula, bok choy. So just remember, as we go through this, it really doesn't matter what type of lettuce you're growing. Almost all the same rules really apply. The number one thing you want to remember about growing lettuce or having a really nice lettuce harvest is the time that you plant it. You don't want to do this in the middle of summer. Just about every single lettuce variety will bolt quickly in the summer. So really think about, it's a cool weather crop. It's a little finicky in the sense that it will not handle a hard freeze or snow, but light frost is not a problem, almost encouraged with lettuce. So early in your spring, and then later in your summer. Here in North Carolina, we can go as late as August late August to plant a second crop of lettuce. All right, so let's get started planting. Because it's already mid-May here in North Carolina, I'm going to plant some lettuce to take inside. It's a little late in the season for me to be planting out in the garden, even though I'll show you some out in the garden. But because I can control the temperatures a little bit better, we're going to plant some here to take inside. Now you want to make sure if you're container planting that you have at least 4 to 6 inches, so you have a little bit of depth. Lettuce needs some drainage. All right, so today I'm just going to plant a little bit of arugula. Now you'll notice arugula seeds, along with a lot of lettuce seeds that you're planting by seed, is just teeny tiny. These seeds are so small, and remember, the smaller the seed, the less dirt you need. So we're not going to plant these in any sort of pattern or order because arugula is so fine. Even in your garden, I like to plant my arugula in patches as opposed to rows, because you're just going to spend too much time really messing with rows when it comes to arugula. If it's too close together, we'll just thin it out. Ultimately, we want our arugula seeds about 1 inch apart. So if it grows up too close together, I'll just pick some of these out. Now I'm just barely covering with dirt, 1/4 of an inch or just barely covering, because that's all your lettuce seeds are really going to need. And the cool thing about lettuce is they don't need any pollinators to grow, so you can grow this indoors and not worry about having to have it outside at all. We're just going to finely mist this and keep it evenly watered. Your lettuce you want to keep evenly watered, especially before it starts to sprout. All right, let's go take a look at some lettuce in the garden. Here's a nice patch of arugula just 45 days later. I'm gonna guess this is about 45 days. And I really could have harvested it probably anywhere from 1 to 1.5 weeks prior to this. This arugula is getting a little bit tall, but it's still gonna be perfect. Your arugula is a spicy type of lettuce, so you're gonna have a nice peppery finish to it, and that's how it's supposed to taste. It is not supposed to taste bitter though. Once your lettuce tastes bitter, you'll know that it's been in the heat a little too long. So here I have, after I planted it out in my garden, I did come back every so often and thin it out so that it would have room to grow. But once it's about 2 to 3 inches tall, you can go ahead and start harvesting it. Now, I highly recommend using a pair of scissors to harvest your lettuce as opposed to just pulling it out. If you pull it out, that's the only harvest you're gonna get. Plus you have to deal with the roots and the dirt and such. So if you just wanna come in and take a handful of lettuce and cut it here, harvest it this way. Now this lettuce here is gonna allow room for more growth. So you're gonna be able to come back and have another 2 or 3 arugula harvests after this. This is the same for any lettuce, okay? Now, after 2 or 3 harvests, you might, it might start getting a little too hot to have really good lettuce. And B, it just doesn't come back quite as big and strong. So here, just 30 to 40 days later, you're ready for a nice fresh harvest of arugula. Here I'd like to show you my romaine lettuce. As you can see, it's planted about 6 inches apart, and this is the green variety, and I also have a red variety. If you want though, if you're planting these in rows, a nice tip is that it looks so pretty if you do a row of green, a row of purple, a row of green. Your romaine lettuce is going to be a little bit better off with the heat tolerance and the frost tolerance just because it grows upright. So it's a wonderful lettuce to add to your garden. Now, as you can see here, I have already harvested this romaine once already. I left at least an inch off the ground. I left about 3 inches here. And this is where you can see I cut my romaine lettuce just with a nice sharp pair of scissors. And honestly, it only took about 3 days for me to have another harvest worth of lettuce. This is probably about 5 days later, but I could have cut it at 3 days. So, and it's just the same thing. You want to, I really suggest harvesting the whole head at once as opposed to just a few leaves at a time. So you want to get in here, hold your bunch of lettuce down and just cut. And in about 3 days, you're going to have lettuce ready to harvest all over again. I wanted to show you some of my seeds as they start to sprout. I planted this bok choy about 4 days ago. Now it's not as even as I would like, but I do use the scatter method, so it's not going to be as perfectly spaced as some people might like. But after I have planted it, I'm just going to go through and thin it to make sure it's about 3 inches apart for now. I can thin it more later if I see that it's starting to come in really big. But this is just similar to radishes or other root vegetables. Even though this isn't a root vegetable, you can just go in and thin out your lettuce. And the one thing that's really great about planting lettuce is I don't have to do this at any certain time. I can thin it now, I can thin it a week from now, or even 2 weeks from now. It's not really demanding on a timeline in terms of when you thin out your lettuce. Even that arugula that we just harvested, I could go in and thin a little bit of that as we eat it. So instead of just harvesting from one corner, you just kind of sporadically cut your lettuce, and that gives the other lettuce a little bit more room to grow. As you can see, we have some romaine that's almost ready to harvest. Really, you cannot harvest them too early when you start seeing those leaves, because those young tender leaves are going to be fresh and not bitter in the least bit. Now over here we have some spinach, and I'm glad that I have this example for you to see, because I like for you to see not only how to do things but how not to do things. And so this spinach here, this is looking a little rough. I want to show you some of these leaves that came off this spinach. What happened here was I started this spinach in my greenhouse and I left it in there one day when it got really hot. So some of my spinach kind of burned up. So here's, I just want you to see these leaves. This is a sign of too much heat. Your spinach, any kind of lettuce, needs to have even watering, and it cannot get super hot. So this is what happens when it gets hot. This is probably going to taste a little bit bitter. I'm going to be able to salvage some of this though by just picking off. When you're harvesting your spinach, you want to pick off the outer leaves, and your inner leaves are going to come in and have some really nice growth. Let me just see if I can show you some of that. Those little baby inner leaves are just going to be wonderful in a few days. Succession planting is a great way to have lettuce all season long. Maybe not all season long, but all spring, or in your late summer, early fall. So after I finished planting this spinach here, I went in and I have a row of spinach seeds right here. Now I do want to show you what it looks like when they come up as seedlings. I need to thin a few of these anyway, so I'm going to pull one out and show you. Let's see, let's get this one right here. What it looks like as a seedling. I want you to see this because it also kind of looks like a grass or weed, so you don't want to mix up what your spinach looks like versus what your weeds or grass look like. As you can see, as I thin it, I have these spaced out about 6 inches apart. You can go anywhere from 6 to 8 inches really for spinach. Now, unlike our arugula and our romaine harvest, again, you're not going to just cut your spinach down. You want to come in and harvest the outer leaves and leave some of the smaller inner leaves for new growth. So your harvesting spinach is going to be a little bit different than the others. This spinach here was planted about a week ago, so I do have these a little bit close together. So I'm going to go through and I will salvage these and put these in a salad. Microgreens are a very popular thing right now, so these will not go to waste. I will still eat these, but you want to have a good bit of space for your spinach. They're going to need a little bit more space than something like your arugula. I want to talk to you for just a minute about growing lettuce indoors from scraps. If you've been on Pinterest, you've probably seen this little hack about using your grocery store lettuce or your scraps and getting another round of lettuce from it. This is just an old olive jar. I like to save these anytime I have jars in this shape for gardening use. And you just put the lettuce in the water. Some people say to put it in a glass of water, but I really like to have this extra space for your lettuce to grow. And in just a few days, I am going to see some growth right out here from the top. I'm going to get some roots that come in, and once you have that, you could just leave it in your windowsill, but honestly, I think it looks a little tacky to have a bunch of this stuff all over your kitchen, and I like the growth that you get from actually putting it in the soil. So even if it's just a clay pot, I think the nutrients from the soil really help it grow a little bit more than just hydroponically. I'm by no means a hydroponic expert. There's probably some more things that you could do to improve it, but just changing that water out daily will really help keep that growth going. Just in the amount of time that we've been doing this video, my lettuce has already started to wilt. So that's a good reminder to harvest your lettuce about when you want it. Also, harvesting early in the morning or in the evening when it's a little bit cooler is helpful, as opposed to in the middle of the day, because in the heat of the day, your lettuce is going to wilt fast. When you take it inside, put it in the fridge or put it in a nice cold, wet paper towel so it's going to be crisp for when you want it. Now, we talked about in the beginning of the video, those cooler temperatures are the #1 key to good lettuce. The seed actually isn't going to even germinate very well in temperatures above 75 degrees. So those cooler temperatures help with the seed, and it also helps once it starts growing to keep it from bolting and to keep it from having that bitter taste. Now, the #2 thing that you need to remember when growing lettuce is watering. Some people say don't overwater your lettuce. Some people say water your lettuce consistently. Well, which one, what does that mean? So when you think about watering, what I want you to think about is consistent, even watering. It's okay to water your lettuce daily, but you don't want to drown it in water. It has shallow roots and it's subject to root rot. So unlike your tomatoes that need deep roots watered, your lettuce just needs those shallow roots watered. So watering often, but not too much every single time. It's going to really the ticket to lettuce. One last thing that I wanted to share with you: when you're planting your lettuce from seed, remember that seed only stores for about a year. So I don't recommend keeping your lettuce seed from year to year. You might want to keep it from season, a year's worth of a season long, but you're going to want to toss that seed after about a year, and it's almost just a better reminder to purchase that seed every single year as opposed to trying to save it, because it just doesn't store well. All right, if you have any other comments or questions or ideas, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for joining me.